Hello, my name is Dragon. I am working on Realpolitiks II as a game designer, and I am going to show you how to create your very own mod from start to finish. This is the first video in the series covering the basics and map creation. Let's start with the basics. To launch the mod tool, you simply need to start the game and choose the second option. Now I will wait for the mod tool to load. Alright, so here we are. This is the first screen that you are going to see after the mod tool finishes loading. And here you have two options. You can either load the previously created scenario or your mod, or you can create a new scenario with your custom name. So for this I will name this mod tutorial and I'm going to create new scenario. And here you have the resolution window where you can choose in this drop down one of the three standard resolutions, standard 2K and 4K, and you can also toggle this toggle button and enter your own custom resolution. But I'm going to stick with the standard resolution for the purposes of this video series, and so I'm going to click confirm to begin creating a completely fresh new scenario that we are going to populate with all other assets. And this is the loaded mod tool with the main canvas here in the middle. For now it is empty. Down here at the bottom right corner you have various map modes that will be relevant later, and up here you have all the buttons with all editors that will allow us to create our own mod. The most important button, of course, is Save and Load button, and I'm going to show you it right now. Here you have the input field for your scenario name, your mod name. This is the name of the folder in which all your mod files are being stored. And here you have additional scenario info that is displayed in the game. So if you want your scenario display name to be, for example, I don't know, Cold War scenario, you have to put it here. And the description of your scenario that will be also visible in the game. So I'm going to name my mod tutorial scenario Winter Survival. And I'm going to create a new name for my first save, because I'm going to save often and I'm going to create backup saves at every step of the way, which I highly recommend for you. And now I press save, and after a short while the scenario should be now saved. And so, in order to create our mod, first we need to create a map. I have prepared some files for my map, textures and so on, and I will now show you how to do it yourself. In the meantime, let me tell you what mod I am going to create for this video series. I would like to put a little survival spin on the game, so I am going to create a mod based on a fictional setting. In order to generate a world map in the mod tool, you first need to prepare some graphic assets, textures that will allow us to create every layer of the map. I have this map of a fantasy world called Kerbanok. This will be the basis for our game and also our base diffuse map, which basically is a color texture. When creating your own mod, you don't need to draw a detailed image. Anything should theoretically work as long as you will be able to create all other textures based on that image. You can create much simpler map than this on your own, even in Paint, if you wish. As you can see, I have divided this image into two different layers: the land layer and the water layer. This is an important distinction, as the mod tool uses separate textures for the water layer and for the land layer. So, let me turn off the water. This is my land layer, all of the land masses. And this is the water layer. And I have also created provinces layer here. And let me tell you how to do it properly. The very first thing I did was to draw borders for my provinces using the pencil tool in Photoshop. And that created province areas that were empty. And using the filling tool, I filled each province with one unique color. For example, as you can see here, I am choosing my color and increasing the green value by 1 each time I fill the next international water provinces. So now that would be 11, and the next one would be 12. And by doing so, province after province, I make sure that each individual province has its own color. And for national order provinces, I'm going to choose a light blue color. And I'm going to change this value one by one down. So let's start here. And now for my land provinces, for the land masses, I'm going to choose a green color and I'm going to increase the red value from 0 up to 255. Let's start with this province. Ooh. And actually this is a problem here. I need to make sure that these are two different provinces. So let me just make sure. Yes, here is the problem. I need to take a pencil and paint it black. Like that. And now I can color this province green and this one also green but slightly more red. So now I have all of my provinces colored. Each one is a different color. And as you can see, they align with our color map. And one last thing to do is to remove our borders. So we simply have to select a color, pick a color from a province, nearby province, and use the pencil tool to remove the border manually. I'm sure there are much easier and simpler ways to do it, but this will actually get the job done and it will prevent us from having overlapping provinces or many provinces with the same color. One of the most important textures that we are going to need is terrain height map. To generate it, I recommend using third-party software called Materialize. This simple program will allow you to create base diffuse map, terrain height map, and normal map. All of them we are going to need in our map creation process. First, you need to take your original map, the basic file, and here, as you can see, it is completely flat. We can preview it in 3 dimensions. First, we are going to edit the base diffuse map. As you can see, we have a preview here. And I'm going to leave those default settings for now to create a diffuse map. And now we are going to create height map by clicking here. And by tweaking those settings, we can create a detailed or displaced or default height map that we're going to need. I recommend you to tweak with those settings to create a height map that you would like to have. But for now I'm simply going to set as height map. And now here, clicking show fall material, our image is not flat anymore. It is actually looking as it is 3-dimensional. And that's what we are going to need to generate the map in the game. We are also going to need normal map. So by simply clicking create here, we are generating a relevant file. And after creating all of those files here, simply choose PNG format and save your project. Choose a relevant file name, click select, and all of those files will now be saved in the selected folder. Okay, so we have our land layer, we have our water layer, and we have our provinces layer. We also need to create a terrain splat. 2 different layers that will serve as a mask for our other textures. And for the purposes of our winter survival scenario, I am just simply going to brush all of the terrain here to create a terrain splat for our land mass. I don't actually need to make it super detailed. That's the level of details I'm going to need for my purposes. And this will be our terrain splat map. So now I'm going to save it as a different PNG file. And also I'm going to duplicate this layer to create water splat map that will give our water a nice texture. And for the purposes of this, I'm going to simply color the water map with a slightly different shade of red, like that, and I'm going to erase that other color by painting in black. And now I have my terrain splat number 2 for the water. So in order to load our terrain texture, I'm going to simply select the relevant file. It is the land height map. And this slider allows me to set the water level on my map. I'm going to slide it down to 0. And this slider allows me to set up the max height of my height map. And I'm going to increase it to 10 for my. All that is left is to press the generate terrain button, and it is going to take some time depending on the size of your terrain texture. And now my terrain should be generated. But for now we cannot see anything actually. So let me just tweak some game settings so that the camera is properly set for our resolution. As you can see here we have minimal zoom and maximal zoom of our camera. I'm going to increase the maximal zoom to 500. And also I'm going to change the camera border top setting down to 1024. That is the vertical size of our map resolution. And also, to actually be able to see our terrain, I'm going to need to set the rotation camera curve, which is important button here that opens the curve editor. We are going to talk about the curve editor extensively later, but for now let me just double click this red square here and set the angle of our camera, angle at which our camera looks at the game map, and increase it from 70 to 85 for the camera height of 1. And now let me double click here and set camera height of 500 and change the angle at which our camera looks at our map at 90. Alright, camera height 500, angle 90 degrees. And so now when I press exit, we can actually see that something happened here. And when I zoom out, we can actually see our default assets here, but don't mind them, we are going to replace them. And here you can see the shape of our terrain height map. So this means that we have properly loaded our terrain texture. And also, as you can see, our map loops around. We can scroll left and right without any limits. But I don't want that. My map is cropped. So I'm going to disable the looping in game settings. So again, we go to game settings, enable map looping, ticker off, and now we cannot scroll left or right without limits. Now the camera is locked from top to bottom and from left to right. And now, after properly loading our height texture, we are going to optimize it a little bit so that it doesn't use so much resources. This is the optimization editor, optimization tool, which allows us with this aggressiveness slider decide how much we want to optimize our terrain and the percent of triangles that are going to stay on the map. So our terrain triangle count now is this number here, and we are going to decrease it a little bit, and I'm going to press the optimize terrain button, and it's going to take some time. And so That concludes our terrain optimization. As you can see, the terrain triangle count is the same as it was, but if we are going to switch our optimization editor, the triangle count will be much lower. That is because it only refreshes when it is closed and open again. So I recommend after optimization closing it and opening to see your new triangle count. But this is still a lot of triangles, so I am going to lower our aggressiveness setting, and I'm going to press optimize terrain again, just to make sure that it is properly optimized and later on it is not causing us any troubles performance-wise. But just to be sure, I have optimized terrain again, reducing the terrain triangle count down to 27,000, which is pretty low amount, but it is going to be enough for me. And also as a note, this button optimize terrain is just reducing the triangle count, and optimize terrain lossless is also reducing triangle count, but it is trying harder to retain the shape of your terrain. After the optimization, I have saved the game and loaded it again, so don't mind how the map have changed. We are going to fix that now. As a reminder, these are our default assets that we're going to replace with our proper textures. So let me go now to the texture browser editor that allows you to replace all map layers with your own files. Let's start with terrain splat number 1 that we have created for our water masses. And let's load our terrain splat number 2. Now let's replace the layered-based diffuse map with our proper map of our fantasy world. And now let's load the layer-based normal map. Let's load the water map. The water normal map. And water depth map. As you can see, after loading all of these textures, we have our water here and our land here that is black, and we need to fix that, so we are going to load another textures. Those textures represent different terrain types that are going to be visible on our land. You don't need to prepare your own textures here. I will use those that are available in our Grand Campaign map in Map Content folder. And now, after loading the water splat number 1 and land splat number 2 and all of my other layers, I need to go to the water layer section here and move this slider slightly to the left so that I can actually reveal my colors and thus my map. And as you can see, now I have water here and land here. So the map is starting to look finished. I also recommend tweaking with other settings here so that you can find your own specifications for your own map and style. But for me, and for now, this is going to be enough. So after loading all the textures, we need to create provinces. So let's go to the province creator. And here we can load our province texture. And now, after loading this texture, we are going to cache our colors. Remember, each province is its own unique color. And I highly recommend clicking this button twice, because now we have cached 74 colors, and it is actually the number of provinces that we are going to have. And so, after caching the colors, we can start generating provinces, and it is going to take some time. And now, as you can see, we have generated our provinces. They are flashing right now, and that means that all of our map is now a province. You can check the list of provinces here in the provinces editor that we're going to talk about later. And as you can see, we have 74 provinces total, just like our cached colors that were also 74. Now that you have created provinces, it's time for some provinces optimization. So let's go to optimization tool again, and let's keep the default settings and click optimize provinces so that their triangle count is lowered. Okay, let's reload the optimization editor. And as you can see, our provinces triangle count has gone significantly lower. But it is still too much, so we are going to hit optimize provinces again after saving, of course. As you can see, our optimization process was much faster the second time. Let's refresh the optimization window again. And our province triangle count was lowered again. But it is still a little bit too much for our purposes, so I'm going to optimize provinces one more time, or maybe two more times, to get lower triangle count. Third optimization behind us. Let's refresh the optimization window. Triangle count 94,000. I believe that is enough for my purposes, so I'm going to save this scenario. And that concludes our first video in the mod tool tutorial series. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to create borders for your provinces and how to edit each individual province. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.